Hello again, Jeti users, and in this video we're going to look at a different way of setting up the throttle activated by a momentary switch. I did a video at a request for this a couple of days ago, and in the comments Ross Cooper Smith suggested a different way of doing it, and as soon as I read it I thought that is a really neat way to do it. Why hadn't I thought of that? So it's certainly worth making a video of it, because in Ross's way we don't need the virtual throttle function that I set up just to get access to the 3-point function curve to put your throttle settings on. So we'll go through it quite quickly. It's nice and straightforward little program. Incidentally, what's going on in my workshop at the moment, which is where I make all my little Jeti videos. I'll zoom out a bit, I think. Here we have, I'm currently building a Booker Jungmeister from a Dave Platt plan from, I think it's 1978 it's got on the plan. This is 1/4 scale. I'm aware Dave seemed to have done Jungmeisters at various different scales. So this would originally have been, it was for a 60 to 90, that's a 10 to 15 cc 2-stroke glow motor, but I'll be fitting it with electric, hence the big box here, for a whopping 6S5000 battery to sit down in there, and then the electric motor sits here, and we've got a fiberglass cowl around the front of it. Note the obligatory coffee. And what I'm doing at the moment is soldering up the connectors at the top of the cab and struts to connect the top wing, and I'm busy making up the little joiners that will run across there, stabilizing them, hence all the bending and soldering equipment that's going on there. Right, let's take a little look at this program. We'll zoom in a bit. About there should do. Slight shift of the camera. And so what we're going to do is set the motor to run when I pull a momentary switch, which for me is this spring-loaded switch down here. It could be a push button that you want to do. And the throttle will be set by the position of a 3-position switch, so you can choose a low, medium, high throttle setting. So in we go into the model. The function assignment. The throttle will no longer be on a proportional stick. It's going to be set to the 3-position switch, where we're going to choose the power setting we want. So we go in there, clear that out, move the 3-position switch. Okay. Come to logical switches. Now the basis of this is that we're going to set a logic switch in which, when the momentary switch is in the motor off position, or the master throttle cut switch is in the off position, then the throttle cut switch itself, the built-in function of it, will switch on, which means throttle will be off. It gets confusing, you know, throttle cuts on, the motor is off, etc. So let's have a look at how we do that. Go in here, enable a switch. Right, control 1, I'm going to use my momentary switch. So I actually have to pull the momentary switch to the on position so that I can set that and release it. And then when I have released the momentary switch, which is motor off, it's at an on setting. Okay. And control 2 is going to be the switch I always use as my throttle cut switch. And it's going to be when it's in the throttle cut position. So if I've moved it to the motor run position, now I'll move it to the throttle cut position. There we are. If you've not seen one of these before, it's a locking toggle. You actually have to lift it up to be able to get it over the lock. Okay. And the logic condition is going to be OR. So if the momentary switch is released and it's in the motor off position, switch is on, or if the throttle cut switch is in the off position, thing is on. Okay, the only way for it to switch off is if the throttle cut switch is in the motor run position and I pull the momentary switch. Yeah, okay, nice and easy. Go to the throttle cut switch and assign that logic switch. Okay, just before I press OK, I shall show you. When the tick is there, it means that the switch is on, which means the throttle cut will be on, i.e. the motor will be off. So the only way that should come on is when the throttle cut switch is in the motor run position and I pull the momentary switch. Does it? Yes. That goes off, the motor will come on. Otherwise, if that's in the throttle cut position, I can use the momentary switch. It won't switch off the throttle cut. Good. So that's it done. Now we can have a look at the servo position, which would be your motor controller. Throttle cut is on, so activating the momentary switch and moving the 3-position switch should have no effect. It should be locked at the motor off. Release that. Move the throttle cut switch to the motor run position. Still locked in the off position. I'll move the 3-position switch around. Nothing. Now, if I pull the momentary switch or push the momentary button, my 3-position switch should become active. And there we are. So that all works nicely. Now, of course, you don't necessarily want off, middle and full power on your 3 positions. So you come to your function curve, because the original request was for low, medium and high power. Go into your curve, change it to a 3-pointer, come down here. Now, the throttle numbers are a little bit different in the function curve to any other function. The normal function curve would be -100, 0% and +100. But so the number here should be -100, but in a throttle it says 0, 50 and 100 because we try and think of our throttle in a different way. It doesn't have a sort of neutral midpoint. It's just off or fully on. Okay, so you don't want your throttle to be off at the low position of the switch. You might want it somewhere up there. Medium, you might want it, say, around there. And full, you probably want it to be at full throttle if you selected full throttle. Otherwise, you'll never get full power. So what's the point of carrying that motor and battery? So we'll leave it at that. And say OK. Now let's look at our servo output. If I pull the momentary switch, there we are. I can now switch around the throttle values using the 3-position switch. Or if I'll put it there, whenever I pull the momentary, it goes to the value that the switch is in. I've switched it up to full power now. Okay, I'll switch it down to low power. So there we are. Everything achieved. Have fun with that, folks.